It's Monday and it's 9. Time for your business to shine with Spotlight on Business.
You can shine, 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 shine. You can shine, 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 shine. Always keep your head up, never stop dreaming. Always keep your faith in what you believe in. Cause busybodies out there and busybodies scheming, plotting and planning to kill all you dreaming. Hoping and praying and consistently scheming, wishing you fall and intentionally mean it. Hoping you slip so they can say that they seen it, to say that they sorry but don't really mean it. I know this is hard and difficult to believe this, but people out there that's trying to achieve this, whether or not you choose to believe this. But I speak the truth cause we really all need this. And I pray the prayer cause I'm not trying to feed this. So turn on the lights so that we can all see this. Take a look in the mirror so you can see what you are, and tell yourself every day that you can shine like a star.
Well, good morning, Hattiesburg and the world, and welcome to Spotlight on Business. I'm your host, Dr. Alonzo Richard Fleming Jr., and I welcome you to the program this morning. We are engaged and on fire in our series entitled The Time and What Must Be Done. We are in week number 10 in our series, and I've been getting so many emails and so many people have been meeting me in public talking about the series and how they are learning so much. And a lot of you have not heard some of the things that I'm talking about, but it's making sense to you, which is proof that it is consistent with the God level that you were created in. And that's what I'm speaking to on this program. So we're going to get into lesson number 10 this morning in the series of Time and What Must Be Done. And I want to thank those of you who are listening all over the country on WJMGradio.com, which are also giving me feedback. And I'm going to actually read a couple of emails this morning from those certain ones who have written to me and or spoken to me personally about some of the things I'm saying. And I really appreciate your comments, criticisms, as well as compliments. Before we get into the program, though, this morning, I got a couple of announcements that I want to get to you. We need a web developer. If you have skills in web development, and you don't have to be an expert, we actually prefer to train you. But you have to have some basic skills and understanding, know your way around the internet, and know how to manipulate pictures and photos and texts and functionality. Have a general idea and in web development, web terminology, and those things. Give us a call at 336-4283. That's the area code 601. And I don't care where you happen to be, because it doesn't matter where you are in the country with this. It's good pay. It really is good pay, web development. We need somebody to manage a lot of the websites that we have. 601-336-4283, and some of the new clients that we are gaining up to this point. Tutors wanted also, math and science especially, ACT preparation, tutoring, SAT. The school year is coming, and we are going to be ready this time to really put our children head and shoulders and prepare them to compete on a real level and not a superficial level of performance with respect to their academic performance. Also, we're going into our next class over at the Tabernacle of Prayer Church, and we are introducing, for those of you who have 10th graders or 11th graders taking pre-calculus or calculus, we are offering some courses called the Survey of Calculus. This will prepare your children to actually study calculus and do well rather than drop out, or study pre-algebra. Prepare them for it. This is what those who are really manifesting are doing. They're putting their focus on this. So we are offering a course, a introductory course, a survey of calculus, a survey of geometry for the 9th graders, because the 9th graders are going into geometry at Hattiesburg High School. And I, quite frankly speaking, I'm very, very disappointed in the geometry education that my son, my 9th grader, got last year. So I think it's due to some preparatory things that might be needed before they get to the ninth grade. So let's consider enrolling your child into the survey of geometry, survey of physics, right at the Tabernacle of Prayer Church. Call 601-582-7567. I'm facilitating those classes, and we also are setting up for our ACT, SAT, and advanced placement preparation to get these young people scoring high. And this goes along with what we are doing with respect to the program and the time and what must be done. We are actually implementing programs based in confidence. You know that confidence comes when you accomplish something. Confidence comes from accomplishment, not from getting someone else to do something, but performing it yourself. So when we get our children to perform themselves, then we will discover that we no longer are worried about these terms like disproportionately underserved. Those terms go away when you begin to accomplish things, when you begin to put your mind to those things and see that you can accomplish them. So contact 601-582-7567 and say you want to enroll your child in one of either the survey of calculus, survey of geometry, survey of physics. I was thinking about adding a survey of chemistry on there, but I don't want to overwhelm myself with this, so I'm going to kind of leave chemistry alone unless I can get some tutors that can help in this respect. Let's see, what else is out there? We're exploring opening up a boys' academy. And so in light of that, we are going to have a luncheon at Shoney's Restaurant on July 26th. And that will give information to parents who are interested, who have boys in grades 4 through 8. That's that period that we want to capture, because that's where we're losing them at intellectually and academically. That's where they're falling off at. If you want to read a book along that lines, you might want to pick up the book by Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu entitled Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. It's a 3-volume set. Really, a really good analysis on that. So we are looking to address our males and come up with a male-centered education curriculum that will help in the development of these boys. So if you have a male or know someone who has a male in grades 4 through 6 going into grade 4th or grade 8th, give me a call at 601-336-4283 or visit the Hattiesburg Parent Network website. That's hattiesburgparentnetwork.com, and register for the luncheon. It's free. We have a sponsor that's sponsoring this whole luncheon, this exploratory scenario, and we'll give you information on bringing about this whole thing. So again, 601-336-4283 or visit Hattiesburg Parent Network and get your ticket to register for the luncheon. It's going to be held on July 26th. I want to say to the men who are listening, a lot of you have spoken to me in public and written me and text messaged me, and we've been talking between these shows. I want you to consider, and this is what I'm telling those brothers who have been released from the alcohol and other addictions as a result of what we're saying on this program, and those who are really ready to get involved in community development at the grassroots level, which is really what's necessary. We need to be at the grassroots level with sane thinking. So if you men, I want to get you to consider the possibility of visiting Tabernacle of Prayer Church of God in Christ as a methodology, a vehicle to firm up your decisions. It's not to get you in the church. I'm not trying to get you religious or turn you into a Christian or any religion. I just believe that you take what God has already placed in our midst and use it. And the reason that I believe that this is a good vehicle here, this particular church is a good vehicle, is because just from my own vibes, just from my own experience and going and interacting, I noticed that there is a sensitivity that comes in that church, that comes from that church, that can accommodate you as a man. So you won't go in feeling like you are a less than, that you are under somebody, but you are dealing with your equal, but he's in a leadership situation. And as a leader, you work with the leader. See, and I just kind of get that sense. So I want you to consider, and this is Dr. Fleming saying this. I think that it's a healthy thing to do, one to consider. I believe that we need to start going back to what got us as advanced as we have. And this particular church is a very good church, I believe. So I want to ask you brothers out there to just consider it, to help firm up your decision to be released from alcohol, to perpetuate that spiritual energy that we've unleashed on this city, because that's what we have done. We have unleashed a spiritual energy that is resonating with the men across the city who are listening to this program. And so I appreciate that. So I just want to put that out there for you. Beginning next Monday, God willing, we're going to talk to the ladies. We're going to begin to share with the ladies some of the thoughts that we believe are necessary to develop a healthy, strong community and a healthy, strong foundation. So we'll begin that aspect of it on number 11. Show number 11, we'll begin to talk to the ladies. If you need help, gentlemen, and this goes for anyone, if you're a lady or a gentleman out there, it doesn't matter. If you need help, someone to talk to, I've just decided to go ahead and put this out there. I set up this alcohol line, help with releasing from alcohol and other addictions. If you want to know how I did it, some of the things I do in my daily living to continue on this path, give me a call or text message me at 601 467 8623, 601-467-8623. Either text message me or give me a call. If you need somebody to talk to, give me a call. I'm telling you, I'm working with this and it works. What I'm talking about here works. It's especially designed for us. And that's necessary because I've said on this show that when there is a problem among a people, whether it be a race, whether it be a community, whether it be a gender, the universe has a way of forming a solution specific to that particular entity that's having that problem, that individual that's having that problem. The solution is always mathematically geared to that particular problem. For example, if you go into the hospital and there are two people in there, you come in with a gunshot wound and another guy comes in with a broken leg, they're not going to give the same treatment, even though the same medical philosophy is being employed. But the treatment for a gunshot wound is going to be completely different from the treatment for a broken leg. And so you would be amazed if you came into the emergency room and the doctor started talking to you about a broken leg rather than a gunshot wound. So don't become upset if I'm talking about things specific to black folk or ebony folk. Because that's the way the universe, that's the way the God delivers solutions. You know, Jesus, we talk about Jesus. Jesus came unto his own. Well, what was his own? Jesus came to his people at a specific space and time, and the doctrine that he had was designed for those people of his time. And that's why you noticed his talk was in a cultural context. He was not talking about black people in America. He was talking about his people in Roman conquered Palestine. He was talking in terms of his cultural connections. He was speaking but he was using principles that are universal. So this is the same thing that we're doing. We're using principles that are universal, that anyone can use in the context which they find themselves in. So we can still take the same principles that Jesus used in his day and form them to be digestible and used in our day. And this is what's necessary. Again, if you want to talk to somebody and get help with releasing from alcohol, we need this, 601-467-8623. We just simply cannot build a proper foundation as individuals with when we are intoxicated and inebriated and our brains have been put to sleep. This is just right there at the foundational level. Again, I want to thank those of you who have been talking to me, and I want to read a couple of questions. By the way, if you want to contact me, just write me at alonzofleming@outlook.com, and Fleming is spelled with one M. I'll take your comments or questions on the show. You can text message me also at 601-336-4283. 601. Why does that number seem strange? 601-467-8623, my text messaging. 601-467-8623, or write me at Alonzo Fleming with one M at outlook.com. I got a couple of questions already, and so I'm going to just address one or two of them today, and I promise to address as many as possible when I get either a text question from you or an email. Let's see here. Well, here's one brother wrote me, and he asked me, he said, Alonzo, you talk about God as the God. Do you believe in Jesus, and is he God to you? And then, so just to answer that question, you notice that I speak in terms of the God rather than God, saying God. And I interchange those terms. Sometimes you'll hear me say God, and sometimes you'll hear me say the God. And that's deliberate. The reason I use the definite article the is to convey to your mind that I believe in one God, that there is a unity, there's a oneness in the creation. There are not multiple gods, big G. There are not multiple gods. So when I say the God, I'm signifying that I know, number one, that many of us in our community and in our country have different names for God. And some of us actually think that there are multiple gods. And we go about in our belief speaking and denouncing another man's God, saying you don't have the right God. Well, the fact of the matter is there's only one. So if you are denouncing someone else's God, it implies that you actually believe in more than one God. So I say the God or the Creator. You'll hear me use that term interchangeably to signify that it does not matter to me what you call God, because the principles transcend words. Words that come out your mouth have different meanings and different energies. So you can say God and whatever, and it will convey a different energy, even though you might be using a name. Even though you have a name that you're using, you may convey that name with an energy that you did not intend to convey. So what we're talking about is a philosophical foundation that you can build on, as opposed to a foundation of sand that shifts. See, words shift in meaning. The word gay today does not mean the same thing as the word gay did, say, 35, 40 years ago. It has shifted in its meaning. Words shift. Names shift. They have different pronunciations with different regions. The name Jesus is Jesus in Spanish. So, and you go to different regions, you find different pronunciations. So the energy is different. I'm going beyond the words. So that's why I use the God as opposed to just saying God, and I do interchange with that. As far as Jesus and is Jesus God, any man who has come to this planet, ladies and gentlemen, this is my belief, has been created by the God. And I, believing in only one God, have to conclude and have to reason that yes, Jesus did come in the God energy, and he functioned in it. But so did you. You came in the God energy, and the only difference between you and Jesus is that you and I, in many cases, have not developed our spiritual connection in terms of how we manifest to the degree that he did. So it appears that he was given the Spirit without measure. But the fact of the matter is he submitted to the Spirit without measure. And if you did the same as he told you in the book, you're going to do greater. That's what Jesus said about you. So there's no disconnect in my thinking between God and Jesus, nor God in you, nor God in me. There is no disconnect. I mean, where can you go where God is not? The only way there can be a disconnect between God and Jesus is if there is a space, a separation between the two. And I don't adhere to that thinking at all. And then the one that I've gotten since I was a little kid is, are you a Muslim? And I have been getting this question. I mean, brothers and sisters, my daddy was a preacher. My grandfather was a preacher. And I tell my friends, God forbid that I become a preacher. Oh, my God. But things as they are, you just have to simply accept your calling, whatever the God gives you the gifts for. But since when I was a little child, even when I was about 13 and 14, and I was really, really into the church, really, really into the church. And that's we could say that any kind of way we want to say that. But people thought that I was a Muslim. Now, I had never been exposed to Islam growing up, even though I would find it difficult to believe that you could be growing up in Detroit and not be exposed to Islam, since that's where Islam among black folk was established. That's sort of like the Mecca of Islam to black people. But I was never directly exposed to Islam, but people have always asked me, are you Muslim? You sound just like one. And every time someone says that, I chuckle, and I think about how Jesus, after he had finished teaching his disciples, and while he was being tried and his disciples had fled from him, they were talking to some other people, and they said, you sound just like him. You sound just like that guy that was doing all that teaching. So I chuckle in that respect because, like I said, I get that question all the time, and I had that question asked to me after last week's show, and in subsequent days, people have emailed me and asked me this question. The real deal is about that, ladies and gentlemen, is that I've always wondered why that I have never been mistaken for a Christian. People say you're super intelligent, you're a genius, all these things, all these accolades and all these adjectives to describe me. People say that, but then they turn around and equate me with a Muslim. And I wonder why I've never been equated with a Christian. I just thought that was strangely ironic that an intelligent man, an articulate man, a godly man is not equated with a Christian? Well, let me just answer that question this way. Are you a Muslim? From my understanding, the word Islam means one who submits himself to the will of God. So if God's will is to have you to submit to righteousness, then again, it goes back to the name thing. What does it mean to be a Muslim? One who submits to the will of God? Well, you might say, well, their doctrine is not the doctrine that Jesus taught, and they don't follow the doctrines of the Christian faith and all that. Well, to make that argument, you'd have to start thinking about the number of Bibles we have, the different versions of Bibles we have. We're not in a position to throw too many stones. And I tend to try to stay away from those type of discussions. But to answer the question directly, I am very, very comfortable with Christianity. I'm very, very comfortable with it. It is the religious philosophy that I believe that God has given to me. I'm very comfortable with it. I follow the practices of it. And I'm just very comfortable with it. But like a Muslim, I do submit my will to the will of God. Like a Muslim, which is what their philosophy is, to submit to the will of God. Doctrinal things, that's between those of you who want to get into that argument. But we're not in a position to argue back and forth between the two doctrines when we look at the condition of us overall. So I try to stay away from that, but I am a Christian. I follow the teachings of Jesus as I read in the Injil, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and out of the King James Version of the Bible. Is that good enough for you? So that's the answer to that question. If you want to write me, you can write me at alonzofleming@outlook.com. Text message me at 601-467-8623. Any questions that you might have. We're dealing with the time and what must be done. And as I said earlier, let me start from the beginning. We have to have a philosophical system of thought to lay as a foundation. Anybody that tells you that they don't have a philosophy, they're lying to you. Everyone has a basic foundation of thinking, something that they build their thought system on. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm laying down a foundation that is strong or strong enough to take us into the changeovers of the worlds that we are now experiencing. We are literally, ladies and gentlemen, experiencing a changeover of worlds. And there are those who do not want that change. They talk to you like they do. But brothers and sisters, when an idea's time has come, the system, the universe puts strategically things and systems in place to help usher you out of one part and into another. So like Jesus said about the man who built his house on sand, and he compared it with the man who built his house on solidness. Both of them had good ideas. Both of them wanted to build a house for shelter. But one considered the foundation upon which he was building to see if it had the strength to withstand what he was building and withstand that which was coming against him. The other man did not consider what he was building on, but he had good intentions. He wanted to build, and he was building, but the sand that he was building on, or the foundation, shifted constantly. And this is what happens when you get bogged down in words rather than meaning, when you get bogged down in superstition rather than principle, when you disregard mathematics in your construct, and physics and chemistry and all the evidence that those disciplines bring to the table. When you disregard that, it's like building a house on shifting sand. You may have good intentions, but your foundation is no good because it's not stable. So it's necessary to have a philosophical system of thought to accompany your spiritual reality and your physical reality. There must be a mental foundation there, because your mentality is the conduit between the physical and the spiritual worlds. Without a philosophy that can communicate with the God and help you to manifest in the physical world, you will manifest insanity. And it's self-evident that many of us have been doing just that. So, lesson 10, I'm talking about the power of I am in the time and what must be done. The power of I am. And going back to the whole foundation that we've been talking about, the time and what must be done, well, we have to go and deal with some principles that are found in the universe that are mathematical, consistent, and easily experienced. So I'm going to give you 7 laws that are spiritual laws that transcend any religion that you might hold, because they are self-evident. As we come up on the 4th of July, we're observing the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration of Independence, the founders of this nation said that it is self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed with certain inalienable rights, and that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the thing I want you to focus in on is the fact that they recognize that it is self-evident. So if it's self-evident, then you must look within the self to get the evidence. Now, Jesus said the same thing several thousand years ago when the ministers of his day, the preachers of his day, start mocking him and asking him cynically, where is this kingdom that you're always talking about? He said, don't look here, don't look there, but the kingdom of heaven is within you. So in order to see what I'm talking about, you can't go looking for this any place but within yourself, where the evidence has been placed by the God. The evidence is in you. It's self-evident. Truth. What is truth has been placed in you, and no man can take this truth from you, because no man put it in you. And this is why the book said you are not born by the will of man or the will of the flesh, but by God. Because no man has access to the path designed for you but you. And when another man tries to get on your path, or when you try to get on another man's path, then brothers, you find yourself going in the ways of destruction. The way of peace and the way of life and the way of heaven is narrow. It's a narrow road, so narrow that only you can walk it. There is no such thing as a universal lesson plan. There is a universal curriculum, but not a universal lesson plan. The lesson plan, like when those of you who are teachers know what I'm talking about. You build a lesson plan for your class. But you know that the students that are in your class have different learning styles. So the lesson plan has to be conformed and modified to fit the learning style of the student to which you are talking. So, but then there are general principles that apply to all of the students, no matter what their learning style is. And that's what I'm talking about today. So here are 7 principles of the universe that transcend religious philosophy, philosophical leanings, and social constructs. The principle, this is how the universe functions, and it's necessary, gentlemen, for you to take note of this, because as we go into talking about these laws to help you firm up your decision to be released from alcohol, you're going to need this. You can't, the philosophy of religion, the philosophy of economics, the philosophy of the social construct that is here today can only take us up to the change. It does not have the wherewithal to take us past the change over that we are experiencing in worlds, because that's what's happening. So there are those who have been sent out that have the information, have the energy, they are the bridge between the worlds. And man just simply doesn't choose this. The God does this. The principle of mentalism is the principle that talks to you and shows you that all creation is of mind. You create through the mind. You use the energy of the God, but the mind to manifest the creative force. And then there's the principle of correspondence. The principle of correspondence, you see Jesus used that principle all the time, because he said you can understand when the storms are coming and you know when it's going to rain, but how do you not understand the time you are in? And many, many principles he used to correspond. He used physical principles to help you understand spiritual principles, because there's a consistency between the two. So the principle correspondence is your tool, gentlemen, to help you reason between the physical world, the mental world, and the spiritual world. Then there's the principle of vibration. This principle is the fact that everything moves, nothing rests. This gives you the ability to understand what you want to create and how you're going to create it. And as we know in science and physics, the faster something creates, the more steel it appears to be. And the vibration of a thing gives that thing its manifestation. For example, the vibration found in wood is different than, say, the vibration found in water. And as a result, it gives its manifestation. So when you understand or use the principle of vibration, then you know what you want to create and in the energy that you want to create it. Then there's the principle of polarity. And this principle is used, gentlemen, to help you to focus in on where you want to be. You want to polarize yourself at a particular point in a particular time to get a particular creation. The principle of polarity talks about poles. You have the North Pole and the South Pole. You have East and West, up and down. These are all illusions for real. But for the sake of manifesting in the earth, we use polarity, the principle of polarity, to discover where we want to polarize ourselves at, in order to create that thing which we are trying to create in the time of the creation. Now, I know it might sound abstract, but that's because it is. Because your creative force is not physical. Your creative force is not physical. The creative force is spiritual and mental. I believe it's in the book of Romans somewhere in the Bible, where it tells you, look not on the things that are seen. For the things that are seen are temporal, but the things that are unseen are permanent. So you have to look at the permanency is in the principle, which does not change from person to person. And this is important, because if you don't know that the principles are just as consistent and work for you just as well as they work for others, then you will begin to think that God cheated you, like the man who got the one talent, and when the man came back to try to see where the profit was, he said, I knew you was this kind of man and I knew you were that kind of man, so I went and buried it. You cheated. You cheated me out of something. The fact of the matter is, gentlemen, that the man with the one talent actually had more than the man with the 3 talents and the man with the 5 talents. Because the man with the one talent, this is what Jesus taught me, by the way. The man with the one talent, his talent had more energy in it. So when you look at it proportionally, his talent was equal to or more than the ones who had the 3 talents and the one who had the 5 talents. He had more energy in it. But he did not perceive the amount of energy that was in his talent, so he went and buried it. So if you find yourself not recognizing that the principles and laws apply to you just as well as they apply to anybody, whether he be a white man, a black man, a brown man, red man, yellow man, rich, poor, bond or free, then you will begin to charge God with cheating you. And indeed, this is what we have done in many cases in our social interactions, because we charge God with not giving us the same thing that he gave to white folk. Oh yeah, we do that. And that's just an example of how we have not looked inward and saw the power that the God has placed in us. And we have not accessed it as of yet, but I know that we are now beginning to access it because we are releasing that energy fit for the time. Then there's the energy or the principle of rhythm. And rhythm, the principle of rhythm has to do with timing itself. Understanding the time. You notice this in the mathematics of music. Those of you who study music. Then there's the principle of cause and effect. And this principle is very, very important for us to understand, gentlemen, because it breaks us away from superstition. And the minister talked about that yesterday, by the way, at the church. You got to go check this church out, Tabernacle of Prayer. I mean, he broke down a lot of things there. He didn't use the phrase cause and effect, but I recognized it as such. And he got right down to practical terms, and it was about prosperity and prospering in our community and having the resources and directing those resources properly. And when I say resources, and when he said resources, he was talking about mental resources, financial resources, talent resources, spiritual resources, properly directed. Brothers, we are just as powerful, just as resourceful, just as energized, just as equal as any other man. And as we come to the 4th of July, and those of us who are celebrating that holiday, the basis of the Declaration of Independence was equality of resources. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That points to the self, the I am. And then the last but not least is the foundational principle of creation. You cannot create, and you can only create, I should say it this way. You can only create when you use the principle of gender, male and female. Your thoughts come in pairs. We call them thought pairs. They come in pairs of male and female. And the way you create, now this is not to give somebody some excuse for some prurient philosophy of 2 men or 2 women, or, I was born this way. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about creation here. The principle of gender and creation comes through the principle of gender, and it functions on all levels. The principle of gender is based in the principle of the male and female dynamic. Your thoughts come in pairs of male and female. And the key to creation is to properly mate the pair. You can have a thought that has a male energy for a specific creation and try to pair it with a female thought that has an energy for another creation. Now, what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters, is going to take us from the collapse of this to the next phase, okay? So if it doesn't fit in your current thought system, then you are experiencing the truth of what I'm talking about. that is not for the system that's collapsing. It is for the new system that's emerging. But if you improperly make your thoughts, then your creations will be what we call miscreations, not the creations of where you want what you want to manifest. So the principle of gender, so it does that. These are the 7 principles that are based in mathematics and based in the creation. You can use them, you can observe them. It says in the book of Romans somewhere, I believe, the first chapter in the Bible. You know, this Bible is starting to come back to me from when I was a kid. It says, for that which can be known of God is clearly seen, being understood by that which is made. So you can observe the creation, observe the principles as they function within the creation, and reason, using the principle of correspondence, reason your way to what can be known of the God. So we're talking about the power of I am, and when you talk in terms of I am, you are speaking at the God level. If you notice, I am speaks of existence in present tense. When you say I am, you are speaking of your existence and you are classifying yourself in terms of the present. So if you use terms like I am lazy, I am poor, I am broke, you are making a declaration about your existence, about yourself at the God level. So now that we have released ourselves from the alcohol, we want to now, we can't define ourselves because like God, we have been made in his image. We have yet to discover the limits. But the I am speaks in terms of the time, speaks in terms of your existence in time. In Jesus' day, he was talking to the preachers who was not understanding what he was saying, and they started challenging him on his existence. They did not know that he was never speaking in terms of the flesh, of the physical world as a cause, using the principle of cause and effect. He even said, what I'm talking about, the flesh cannot profit from this. The material world does not profit. The material world does not understand what I'm talking about because the material world is an effect and not a cause. I'm talking to you at the causative level. And so when I talk in terms of I am, I'm speaking to you as one who can cause. So brothers, when you say I am, make sure I am strong. I am powerful. I am in the image and likeness of God. Never say I am and put something behind it that you do not want to be, because you are making a declaration in present tense about yourself. So when Jesus said before Abraham was I am, he was not talking about the physical. He was talking about the knowledge of himself as the infinite existence in the mind of God. And this is where we have to begin to function as, in the mind of God, as the ever, as long as God is thinking about you, you exist. Existence, you go out of existence when the God ceases from thinking about you. And that has nothing to do with your body manifestation. So the power of I am now, gentlemen, gives you the ability to access your talents, which has been given to you, redirect our energy towards creation rather than prevention. And I'm going to get to that in a moment here. Now, the present institutions, ladies and gentlemen, all of them, the institutions that are present, the philosophies within them can no longer serve the energy that is being unleashed now. The energy is too potent. It's too potent. He said that you cannot put new wine in old wineskins. The reason that you cannot do that is because of the potency of the wine. and the present institutions cannot withstand the potency and the power and force that is being unleashed by those who have that wine. I hate to put it in those terms, considering that is the very thing we want to get off of. But see, that's what Jesus was talking about. He was using what they were dealing with and using that in their day in order to convey a thought. So I'm going to say it like this. You cannot put the present energy in the old wires. How can I put it like that? Because they cannot withstand it. The potency of it is so strong because it's being born. It's got most of its strength, and the institutions simply cannot contain it. The present philosophies simply cannot contain you. You have been born at a time with the energy for the time. So in the time, we have to choose, and this is the only choice we have. We can choose between truth or illusion, love or fear. Now, you are created in love. You can choose between yourself or fear. You are created in love because the God is love. And since you are in the image and likeness of God, then your nature is the nature of love. But you can be tricked and caused to use your mind to function in fear. But what we're doing here is bringing you back into present tense to where you will release fear, which you have done when you released that alcohol. You also released fear. You also released all the minds of fear that you had surrounded yourself with as you were ingesting this substance. So you choose between love or fear in every aspect, every situation that occurs to you. You choose between the power of love or the misery of fear. And so as part of our historical relationship in our country, as we come up to the 4th of July, we have been given a thought platform of fear. And we have functioned in fear. And that fear thought system is the fear of ourselves, the fear to look within, but to always look without. And even as the Declaration of Independence has said, and even as Jesus has said, you cannot get what they are talking about by looking any place other than yourself, where the I am is. So we need to pay close attention to our thoughts now. We need to remain as close to present time as possible. And present time is in mathematical terms and in scientific terms. The present is the only part of time that is real. So when you make the decision to return to your sanity, the thoughts and the mind of those who hold the thoughts of fear, which you have surrounded yourselves with as you were ingesting it, will begin to come to you, and they will begin to come after you, and this coming after you is only designed to make you relinquish from looking within yourself and going to that comfort zone of safety and begin to go back to what brought the fear, because it's discomforting. And so when you make the decision to release yourself from that prison, it is at that moment that the God springs into action. And it's at that moment that you discover the thoughts of fear, the thoughts of attack. They begin to come at you because they want you to go back into that comfort zone where they live, but you perish. So those of you who have heeded the word that I've spoken, gentlemen, the cloud of death is now lifted off of you. And you know it. Some of you have said, a brother told me the other day, he said, man, I put down marijuana and that cloud of death is gone. It goes away. And all of a sudden, the thoughts of God that were always there, never left you, began to appear. So you begin to make sober decisions. And your decisions begin to be based in courage and not in fear. See, when you're in fear, you're always trying to prevent something from happening. But when you are walking in love, brothers, you are creating. You are always creating when you are walking in love. So you were given the power over the material world. And so you have to come in contact with who you are. This is found in Genesis chapter 1, when the God created the man and made the man in the components of the male and the female. He took them and he said, look at this. All of this is yours. You dominate it. You can do what you want to do with the material universe. You were given the tools, gentlemen, and to rule and manifest as a ruler. And not only were you given the tools and the command to rule, the earth was given the command to obey you. So if your thinking is fear-based, which is unnatural to you, if fear-based thinking is being employed by us, we will be made to think of ourselves as the earth. We will be made to think of ourselves as the dust of the earth. And we will be easily made to worship and serve our brother as though he's our God and not as our brother. That's what happens when you think of yourself as the dust of the earth. When you think of yourself as the image and likeness of God, then you think of yourself as the ruler. You cannot think of yourself as the ruled and rule. You cannot think in terms of being ruled and then rule. You must position yourself at the level of the ruler in order to rule. So you have two stories of what happens to you or your perception. You have two stories in the Bible that you will experience depending on how you think of yourself. If you think of yourself as the image and likeness of God, you will notice good, blessing, creation. If you think of yourself as the dust of earth, you will notice not good, separation, sleeping, division. These are two pictures of your choice in all matters, and you will think that God is backing those choices, not knowing that you are actually not submitting to, when you are functioning in fear, you're not submitting to your true nature, which is love. When you think of yourself as the dust of the earth, you always will think of yourself in terms of guilt. And you will call witnesses to yourself who will witness to you for your guilt. And so you find us in the prison system. All through the prison system. This is because we are calling witnesses for guilt to us. But if we change our focus, we will discover that the witnesses for love and creation will begin to appear. This is scientific. This is mathematical. We have been given a philosophy, gentlemen, in calculus. Let me say this, and then I'm going to close the program out. In calculus, there is a principle called limits, which is the fundamentals of calculus. And under limits, you can have an equation that gets you ever so close to what you want to be, but you notice you never get there. You notice you never arrive because your limit might be, say, 5. You're trying to get to 5, but your equation cannot get you to 5. Your equation may only be able to get you to 3. So you're using an equation and you do the calculation, you do the math, and you say, well, wait a minute, the limit of this equation is 5. So how come I can't get to 5? Because in calculus, you can have a limit of 5 without actually being 5. So if your thinking does not get you to where you need to be, you need to throw it out, get another equation that where the limit is 5 and it also can be 5. I'm Dr. Fleming, and I'm out of here.
You can shine, shine.
Spotlight on Business is brought to you by Next World Publishing, where education, business, and technology meet. Tune in to Spotlight on Business every Monday from 9 to 10 and spotlight your business once again.
Busybody scheming, plotting a plan and to kill all you dreaming.